Time for a quick commercial.
That's right, Ellie. This episode is brought to you by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And they'll even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. To get started, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm today.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for Throwback Thursday.
Welcome back to the Lessons for Success podcast. I'm your host, Adam Wardlaw, a middle school science teacher and a high school football coach in South Carolina. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast heard by over 2,000 students, teachers, and coaches worldwide. The goal is to provide quick daily lessons to help you achieve more in your life. Be sure to reach out to the show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and now TikTok by searching L4S Show or using the hashtag L4S Show. Remember, it's the number 4. If you're listening on an iPhone, be sure to give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts in order to keep our community growing. Now let's start the show. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know, and you are the one who will decide where to go. This, of course, comes from the famous Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Throwback Thursday here on the Lessons for Success podcast. Did you know that during this week in 1904, famed author Dr. Seuss was born? Here's a little background if you're unfamiliar with the story of one of America's most famed authors, courtesy of SEUSSville.com. I'll share the link in the show notes so you can check it out. Theodore Seuss Geisel was born to Theodore and Henrietta Geisel in Springfield, Massachusetts on March 2, 1904. Known as Ted by his family and friends, he was the grandchild of German immigrants, and he had one sister. Seuss was his mother's maiden name, and it was pronounced Zeus in the German manner. He spent his childhood at 74 Fairfield Street, and when he walked through the Springfield Zoo in Forest Park with his father, he began bringing a pencil and sketch pad so he could draw the animals. He entered Dartmouth College in 1921 and graduated in 1925. Dartmouth was where he first began using the pseudonym Seuss, and in 1927 he added Doctor to it. After Dartmouth, Ted traveled to Oxford, where he attended Lincoln College and met his future wife. They got married in 1927 and moved to New York City. Dr. Seuss's first children's book was published in 1937, but only after it was previously rejected by publishers 27 times. In 1943, he joined the Army and was assigned to the Information and Education Division. This is where he met Chuck Jones, with whom he would collaborate to create the 1966 television special, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, based upon the book by the same name that was published in 1957. You see, Ted identified with the grumpy character who famously hates Christmas, but then has a change of heart, and even had a license plate on his Buick that read Grinch. Ted and Helen moved to California, and in 1948 they began building a home in La Jolla, where Ted would live for the rest of his life. Geisels loved to entertain at their home and travel the world. The people and places they came into contact with sometimes became inspiration for his books. You see, Dr. Seuss was a prankster and loved to joke, and he had a penchant for wearing crazy hats from his collection of hundreds. In 1957, The Cat in the Hat was published and was an immediate success. After a 1955 book by Rudolph Flesch and an article in Life magazine in 1954 by novelist John Hershey, in which boring school primers were said to be a major cause of children not wanting to read, William Spalding, who was then the director of Houghton Mifflin's educational division, challenged Dr. Seuss to write a story that first graders can't put down, using only 225 words chosen from a list of 348. Dr. Seuss accomplished the task only using 236 words. The book's runaway success inspired Beginner's Books, a division of Random House co-founded by Dr. Seuss himself and his wife. The Cat in the Hat Comes Back and 4 other titles launched the Beginner's Book series. One of his next huge successes, Green Eggs and Ham, was published as a beginner book in 1960. Dr. Seuss's publisher, Bennett Cerf, bet him that he could not write a book using 50 or fewer different words. The resulting book, which has the fewest words of all his books, is the best-selling title. Dr. Seuss won many awards for his various literary and entertainment projects, including a Pulitzer Prize in 1984 for his special contribution to the education and enjoyment of America's children and their parents. 3 of his books received Calcutta honors, and he was the recipient of 7 honorary doctorate degrees. And he was even posthumously awarded a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2004. Dr. Seuss died on September 24th, 1991, but the man who inspired everyone from 6-year-olds to NASA engineers left behind a gigantic legacy of genius and imagination. Every year on March 2nd, his birthday, he is remembered around the globe as children and adults alike celebrate literacy in his honor. So what can we take away from the life and accomplishments of Dr. Seuss? I think his legacy proves that your imagination can lead to many great accomplishments without even being deliberate about it. When Dr. Seuss began his career, there's no way he could have predicted the impact he was going to make. He was simply doing what he enjoyed and following his heart. His imagination and dedication to his craft has resonated with millions today. His books are often some of the first stories we hear as we're growing up. Many of us can credit our literacy to the roots that were created by reading Dr. Seuss books. So as you go about your days, as we have mentioned before, you should be doing what you're passionate about. When you follow what you care about deep down and you work diligently, then in the grand scheme of things, you will have lived quite a fulfilling life. You will also have an impact on more people than you may realize along the way. I hope you all had a chance to participate in Read Across America Day. And if you didn't, it's never too late to pick up a book. Before I go, what's your favorite Dr. Seuss tale? Reach out to the show on social media and let me know. That's all the time I have on today's episode. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as we wrap up our work week with a feel-good story to send us into the weekend on a high note. Take care. Well, folks, that's it for another edition of the Lessons for Success podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember that you can keep up with the show wherever podcasts are found, as well as the newly updated Lessons for Success YouTube channel. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok to keep up with more content from the show. If you haven't already done so, give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. That's all the time I have for today. Be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Lessons for Success show.